Waiting for the best deals? Spring Black Friday savings are here. Shop early access now at Blinds.com and save big on new custom window treatments. Blinds.com makes upgrading your window treatments easy with free virtual consultations, free samples sent to your door, and professional measure and installation services. Plus, you always get Blinds.com's 100% satisfaction guarantee. Shop Blinds.com's Spring Black Friday early access now. Save up to 40% with minimum purchase, plus a free measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Today on CityCast Portland, we're talking about the latest updates on Old Town's possible new shoe manufacturing campus, the international students at Oregon universities being targeted by the Trump administration, and the new data-driven approach Multnomah County is using to better serve our homeless population. Joining me on this week's Friday News Roundup are Willamette Week City Hall reporter Sophie Peel and our very own executive producer, John Notarianni. It's Friday, April 18th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Welcome, everyone, to the Friday News Roundup. Sophie, John, thank you for hanging out with me this morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Claudia.
For those of you new to the show, today is the day we break down some of the biggest local stories of the week with some of the best and brightest journalists in town. But before we jump into the news, I usually ask an opening question so our listeners can get to know our guests a little better. And honestly, this opening question is how I personally keep myself amused every week and also get to passively torment John. So it's like a win-win.
It's true.
You should have never told me.
That the opening question makes me nervous.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it actually makes me quite nervous, too.
Sophie, it makes you nervous, too?
Oh, yeah, big time.
God, and you know what? My enjoyment is just rising. So, Sophie, as you know, this May 3rd, we're hosting a block party to celebrate 503 Day, the totally real holiday where we get to celebrate ourselves and all that is Portland. Because we don't get to do that often, most of the times it feels like we're defending Portland from outside criticism or our own, which is sometimes even more painful.
Mm-hmm.
So on 503 Day, we let go of all that negativity and have a good time. John, do you want to tag in and remind people what to expect at this block party?
Yeah, so the block party happening May 3rd in Ankeny Alley downtown. It's going to be going from 1 o'clock till 6:03 p.m. That is 5 hours and 3 minutes. We've really thought this through, you guys. And we've got a ton of great entertainment coming. We've got live music. We're going to have vendors and a beer garden and food. We're going to have a live band karaoke set up, and we've actually tapped some local celebrities that we're really excited about to do surprise songs. And then we have an official proclamation from the city of 503 Day as a real holiday at 5:03 p.m. But the other part that we're really excited about is this costume contest.
Yeah. So it's essentially, you have to sign up. You can't just show up. You have to sign up. But myself, Jay Flewelling, and Brianna Wheeler are going to judge a costume contest. I found this out, by the way, the day I returned from vacation. And you have to dress up like a Portland icon, either a person, place, or a thing. It could be anything that just, when you look at it, you're like, Portland. So my opening question to you both is, if you were to enter this 503 Day Block Party Portland Icons costume contest, who or what would you dress up as and why?
The low-hanging easy fruit for me would be the Kenton Paul Bunyan statue.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like easy, already got the beard, let's go. But my stretch goal would be the Jansen Red Diving Girl.
Oh, okay. Oh,
That's a fun one.
So Jansen swimsuits, founded here in Portland. You just get like a nice like one-piece red swimsuit and a red swim cap. And I think I'd look great. So.
You know what's so fun? Is like you really got into Jansen swimwear because we did a show about Portland exports.
Yeah.
And he did Jansen Beach, and like now he's like a big old stan.
Number one fan.
Yeah.
I love it. What about you, Sophie?
Okay, well, I misunderstood the question, so I thought my answer had to be limited to people. And the only person I could think of that, like, she was before my time, and so all I've heard about her is, like, the lore around her, but is Vera Katz.
I was about to say, is Vera Katz?
Yeah.
It's Vera Katz.
Because I've just, like, everyone's like, oh, that's the mayor that everyone... I mean, I know she had issues, but, like...
That everybody loved?
You know, when someone has issues, but then worse things happen, so you're like, they weren't so bad. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I could have met her. So maybe if you're cats.
Nice.
I like it.
I dress up as a crow.
I thought you were going to go Earl Blumenauer since you're already halfway there with the costume.
Oh my God. No one would know. They're just like, look at this lesbian with a fucking bow tie.
Another one?
I know, exactly. Just being a lineup. Noah Crow.
That's okay. Cool.
Right?
Yeah.
Come on. It wouldn't just be me dressed up as the crow. I would like have some sort of like illusion where it just looks like I'm a murder of crows.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there'd be other little heads. So yeah, it'd be me and my homies.
And we should say that signups for the costume contest are now live on our website. We'd love for you to sign up. We're looking for 15 people to be in the contest. So if that's up your alley, portland.citycast.fm, and you can find the sign up for the costume contest.
Nice. All right. Well, we all hope to see you there. Thanks, you guys, for your answers. On to the news of the week. Sophie, you're sharing a story you just published about your new beat, Old Town Portland. What's the scoop?
So I think you guys had talked about the first story that I wrote about this project. I wrote a couple stories now about this very ambitious shoe incubator and innovation sort of campus that is planned for Old Town called Made in Old Town. And the idea basically is that we can create our own shoes here, and small, innovative brands can bring all their manufacturing to Old Town. The project kind of principals have envisioned a 9-building campus in Old Town, which is like a pretty meaningful chunk of Old Town. And they are sort of in the process of trying to get money to buy up these buildings and bring in companies to lease these buildings. And the first story that I wrote was really about sort of the project's viability. And that despite sort of big promises by this project to get a lot of private equity to fund this like extremely expensive vision, they've really just been tapping taxpayer dollars for the most part. And so they got a $2 million grant from the state last year from the legislature. Mm-hmm. They more recently got a $7 million loan from Prosper Portland, even though the loan was very risky in of itself. Went to sort of a totally untested model. And it also sort of went against all of the agency's guidelines. And then the project has also tried to get money from the Portland Clean Energy Fund. They've also tried to get money from Metro Business Oregon. I mean, they've gone pretty much everywhere they can to try to get public dollars for this project.
I do want to say, though, that Metro denied them for like a much lesser number, like $600,000 or something.
Yeah.
Because they're like, yeah, what are you?
Right.
Metro wouldn't do it, but Prosper Portland was like, yeah, here's a good $1 million.
Very few questions asked by the Prosper board when they approved it. They were, it was sort of like glowing reviews only. So it's sort of interesting to see how different governments have dealt with these requests. But at the time, we had gone to Governor Tina Kotek because in the spring of 2024, when the legislature had passed this $2 million grant, Governor Kotek, almost vetoed the bill because she had concerns about this project and sort of its viability. So she struck a deal with the project where she said, okay, you guys can get the first $1.2 million of this grant, but in order to unlock the remaining $800,000, you guys need to show that you have funding sources from elsewhere. People close to her have said that it was her expectation that those funds would probably be private equity funds, not other public dollars.
Yeah.
But that's not what the project said. When we reported on this story last month, or maybe it was in February, we had gone to the governor and basically said, hey, so they got the $7 million Prosper loan. Part of the reason why Prosper even approved this loan in the first place is that the project had said, we're going to go back to the legislature and get another $4 million grant next year. And when the governor heard that, she was like, that's news to me. And so she, put out a pretty strong statement saying something to the effect of like, I would urge caution to anyone looking to fund this project.
Oh, she cursed them.
Yeah, which is a pretty strong statement from the governor.
She's just basically saying, hey, they're already being shady.
Sure. Yeah, I think that was probably the subtext of that. So anyways, after that first story, I waited like a month and then I got some records from the state because I wanted to see how things had evolved. And so it shows that one of the project's principals had reached out to the governor's office after our story and basically said, hey, this statement could seem like you are undercutting and not supporting this project in, Portland's direst times. And so there was this really interesting back and forth between Vince Porter, who's one of Kotek's deputy directors, and this project principal about sort of the financial viability. They exchanged a couple emails. Vince Porter had put all these questions to this project about like kind of what the heck. He didn't ask that, but all 10 questions that he did ask could have been encapsulated by what the heck. And those questions were not answered in writing. They had a phone call. And then like a couple weeks later, the governor's office greenlit the remainder of the $800,000 for the project. And the proof that the project provided to the governor's office to show that they had, raised this additional $800,000 was a remaining lease payments from a tenant that has an existing lease in the building that the project just bought. So technically that is private equity because they are lease payments that they're getting, but it's also not. First of all, that money doesn't exist yet. Yes, it's promised in the remainder of the lease terms, but like that's not actual cash to my understanding. So anyways, the whole thing is very interesting to me. I'm really curious to see where this project goes. They've made really big promises about this, but again, it's just like you need a mix of private dollars and public dollars. And right now, the vast majority of what this project has are public dollars, and public officials are a little, I think, like, not suspicious, but I think they are urging caution right now around that.
Yeah, and it feels like there's definitely a sort of a component of asking mom, then asking dad for the money here, of going to one government entity and trying to get some funding and then turning around and being like, oh, we need money from another place as well, in lieu of this sort of private investment that, like, if this was such a great new project that was going to create a lot of jobs and be really profitable, you would hope that you would see that sort of money flowing in too, right?
Yeah, talking to mom and then dad is like such a great analogy for this, because that's exactly what it feels like. And I will also say the project has said in writing to various governments, like they have made some pretty misleading statements about what funding they've already secured from other public governments. Like when they first reached out to the governor in the spring of 2024, they said that part of their financial stack was like a $700,000 grant from Prosper and a $750,000 grant from the Portland Clean Energy Fund. At that point, they'd gotten no money from Prosper and they never got any money from the Portland Clean Energy Fund. It's just been very misleading at times and I think confusing.
Yeah. So when you said that the state decided to release the money, even though technically it doesn't appear that they've hit the guidelines, but we don't know because it was a phone call. I wonder if it was just like a mea culpa on the governor's part, realizing like how insanely powerful her words were and how it might have just cursed them. Like everyone's like, oh, well, if the governor thinks this is a terrible investment, I'm not going to give them my money. And I wonder if they were just like, I'm sorry, here. God damn it.
Yeah, so I think, and I don't know this, but my theory is that one, the state legislature basically already greenlit the $2 million. It's just a matter of when and where this group provides matching funds. So it might have been one of those things where it's like, look, we already allocated the funding. We just got to release it. And like, we have bigger fish to fry than $800,000. And I think that might be part of it. I think the other thing, too, is that the project has always argued that, like, we never said the matching money was going to be private. Like, that was never clearly laid out. I think the governor's office, that was their assumption and that was their understanding of conversations. But I don't think ever actually in writing, they have like a leg to stand on necessarily. So I think it was one of those things where it's like, governor's office was like, you know what, we got bigger problems. Like, let's just let it go.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's a pretty cool idea. I wish that it could work because it would bring so much activity to an area that really desperately needs it. But I can't imagine that any of the people who are doing this are just like, let's swindle the public. You know what I mean? I think they really do believe in this idea.
Oh, I think so too.
Like 100%. And they're just like mavericking their way through. They're just like, we're going to freaking figure this out. Say sorry later.
I totally agree. I think they all really want this thing to work.
Yeah.
They are all shoe guys for the most part. At least a couple of them do have like a very real vested interest in Old Town. Like, I think their hopes are really, really genuine. But I think you're right. I think there are a bunch of like very ambitious guys who didn't necessarily realize in practical terms how difficult this sort of project would be.
Yeah. One other part of this that I find really interesting is the Prosper Portland part, right? Where it sounds like this loan that they made has been viewed as risky by a lot of people. And Claudia, on Monday, we're going to be talking about another Prosper Portland project with the conversions of the Falcon Building and the Casket Building, which they're also putting a lot of money into to try and do like a commercial to residential conversion. I mean, if all of these projects work out and like become super viable, they're going to look like geniuses.
Totally. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like either they're going to look dumb or they're going to look like, wow, this agency really turned it around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard bargain. Like, that's tough.
Well, Sophie, thank you so much. I'm actually looking forward to the next few articles because it's not just this project. You've been kind of all up in there at Old Town Portland.
Yeah.
Just because you never hear from that area. I didn't even know they had an association.
Yeah.
And like a lot of us are rooting for them. So it is a bit of like a fly on the wall. So I appreciate it.
Oh, good. I'm happy to hear that.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break here. And when we return, more headlines of the week.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast. We've all set health goals: lose weight, exercise more, eat better. But without a plan, those goals often fade. That may have happened to you. It has definitely happened to me. And that's where Prolon comes in. Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet gives you a science-backed, structured approach to stay on track and see real results. And now Prolon is upping their game with the new Next-Gen 5-day program, delivering the same science-backed benefits in a cleaner, more convenient, and more flavorful format. Prolon is a plant-based nutrition program featuring soups, snacks, and beverages designed to nourish the body while keeping it in a fasting state, triggering cellular rejuvenation and renewal. Next-Gen builds on the original Prolon with 100% organic soups and teas, a richer taste, and ready-to-eat meals. Developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by top U.S. medical centers, Prolon has been shown to support biological age reduction, metabolic health, skin appearance, fat loss, and energy. I've been doing the 5-day program, and I feel so much better. I really enjoy the tasty energy bars, the snacks and soups, and the fact that I can enjoy meals, even though the calorie count is super low. The flavors and textures are excellent. An olive oil snack here, broccoli and quinoa soup there, hibiscus tea, a yummy nut bar. It's got the benefits of a 5-day fast, but doesn't have the challenge of doing it with pure liquids. It's a system reset. And also, I know this sounds funny, but it's not. The packaging and directions are fantastic, clear, and well-organized and thoughtful. For a limited time, you can be first in line to experience the new Next Gen at special savings. Prolon is offering CityCast listeners 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com/city. That's PROLONLIFE.com/city to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/city.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
All right, guys. So I'm looking into how the Trump administration is targeting international students at Oregon universities, at all universities across the nation. But I relied on reporting by Zane Splish Splash Sparling at the Oregonian for the local angle, and a PBS NewsHour investigation into the larger national story. So anyhow, Zane laid out how the feds have ordered the removal of nearly 24 international students across Oregon, the largest number being at Oregon State University, where 13 student visas were revoked. International students at PCC, PSU, and U of O were also targeted. For example, earlier this week, U of O reported 4 students' visas were revoked, with the reason being only unspecified criminal charges. And this is the federal government revoking visas. The school has no say. The school has not found any criminal charges. This is just what the federal government is giving as a reason. So all in all, 23 Oregon students must leave the country in 2 weeks or risk arrest and deportation on non-specific charges. So aside from their feeling like there's no rhyme or reason to these revocations, OSU spokesperson Rob Odom was also quoted as saying, international students and employees who otherwise maintain their immigration status are typically not at risk of having their immigration status terminated suddenly, arbitrarily, or without notification. So if you're asking yourself, so is this a normal thing? No, it's not a normal thing.
Not normal.
No, there's usually legal due process. And of course, Oregon isn't the only state where federal officials are cracking down on international students. To give you a larger picture, because I was just like, how often, how many, whatever. Around 1.1 million international students were in the United States last year, and this year was expected to see even more growth. The national number keeps changing on who's getting revoked, but last I checked, as many as 900 of these international students across the states have without warning been told to pack their bags. That's roughly under 0.1% of all international students currently enrolled. And as I share this number, because when you see it just from the numbers perspective, it doesn't feel that dire. I imagine that's the percentage that is being revoked every year under any administration, right? 0.1. But when you ask the simple question, why are the students getting sent back? And all you get from the Trump administration is because we say so.
Yeah.
It is dire and also scary if you expect our federal government to respect its own citizens' due process and civil liberties. Because remember, this is how tyrants test boundaries and see how far they can bully you as they pick on those with the least amount of power.
Yeah.
So when asked to specify why these students were getting kicked out, U.S. Secretary of State Mark Rubio said it was because some of the students were pro-Palestinian activists. Straight up just said pro-Palestine, but said that others simply had criminal records. But it wasn't hard to find students whose visas had been revoked that did not fall under either category. But even so, I can't think of anything more un-American than kicking people out for political beliefs. I mean, if that's what we're doing, let's go after the Nazis next, right? Let's just do it.
Yeah.
How about we go after Nazis? No? Oh, okay.
Yes. Well, let me jump in with a little bit more because this is just coming out Thursday morning from some reporting by Troy Brenelson and Tiffany Kamhai at OPB. There actually is a student that is suing the federal government from Oregon to reinstate his visa. This is Aaron Ortega Gonzalez, a Mexican citizen and a PhD student at Oregon State University. Aaron's been studying the impact of wildfires on ranch lands. Visa was revoked, says that he's never committed a crime or violated visa rules or withdrawn from studies, but found out on April 4th that his visa had just been revoked with no real explanation. He's not in custody, but he's been told to leave the country immediately, but he's now filing a lawsuit and is part of a growing number of students across the country that are filing lawsuits trying to get their visas reinstated.
This part of the story is insane to me. According to the lawsuit, officials with Immigration and Customs Enforcement went into a government-controlled database of student visas on April 4th and terminated Ortega Gonzalez's status. Immigration officials wrote in the database, individual identified in criminal records check and/or has had their visa revoked. According to the lawsuit, Oregon State University's Offices of International Services emailed Ortega Gonzalez on April 8th, alerting him to the change in his status. Just the fact that I think we thought all this crap would happen slower or that it wasn't quite so easy for the administration to just wreak havoc. Because we've always been told that government moves slowly. And yet here we are and ICE just goes into the database and starts flagging random kids. It's hard not to just feel hopeless about a lot of these things when it just feels like it is so easy for this administration to kind of do whatever they want. And our only recourse is legal. And that takes time. The legal process takes real time. You can't necessarily speed that up.
Yeah. Well, and the administration, even if they're getting a legal order from the Supreme Court, Trump is just ignoring it.
Well, that too, right.
So what's the recourse?
Yeah.
I also want to just lay out how terrifying this is for international students. So PBS found that a PhD student from China at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill began carrying around her passport and immigration paperwork at the advice of the university's international student office. So that's what the school is just like, sorry, that's all you can do. Show me your papers is such a that should be freaking us out right now.
Yeah.
So the student who asked to stay anonymous for fear of being targeted by authorities says she has been distressed to see the terminations even for students like her without criminal records. So the student was quoted as saying, that is the most scary part because you don't know whether you're going to be the next person. So I did bring up that 0.1%, but I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to terrify.
Yeah.
I really feel like this is part of the angle. And in their investigation, PBS found that it's making the country appear like an unwelcoming place to study abroad. So I wonder so many things. I'm just why is Trump trying to isolate us? This, again, bad boyfriend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If we're disconnected from the world, from our allies,
Gotcha.
when he comes for its own people, which is us, we're not going to have any recourse. It's just going to be us because we stopped talking to all of our friends. So that's my fear, which honestly, we don't need a journalistic breakdown to gather that. It's just common sense that this just seems arbitrary and the U.S. is now appearing like a bad place to study, a bad place to live. And something not widely discussed is also how international students are a source of essential revenue for tuition-driven colleges because international students are not eligible for federal financial aid. So they're not even sucking at the teat of the Fed. You know what I'm saying? If that was what came out, their ability to pay tuition often factors into whether they'll even be admitted into the school, and they're paying full price. So even though the number of the affected international student population is just under 0.1%, like I mentioned, the fear is probably affecting 100% of all international students. And it's going to be damaging for our educational system.
Yeah.
And I think that's also another thing that is being looked at is the dismantling of our universities. And why would Trump want to dismantle our universities? Why is he going after Harvard? Why is he? It's just those are the questions that to me, when you read this and you're like, this doesn't affect me. It's you got to start asking the bigger questions as to why.
Yeah. I agree with all of that. And it's really scary. And one thing that I will add to all of that, Claudia, you talk about how this feels systemic. Sophie, you talked about how this feels like the administration is moving fast. What I'm seeing is actually a disconnect within the government. One hand not knowing what the other is doing, of ICE having this mandate and it not necessarily even being approved by higher ups. Because this is coming from two different sources, so my numbers might not be super accurate. But I did see in one source that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says between 150 and 300 visa revocations have been approved. Then the AP reports that 900 students at least have had their visas revoked, right? So there's this way higher number of these things just happening than the administration is even clearly acknowledging, which I also find really frightening.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be following that story as well. But let's take a quick break here. And when we return, more headlines of the week. All right, John, what you got?
I'm looking at some new data, some very comprehensive new data that is coming out about homelessness in our region through some great reporting by Lillian Monjo-Hughes at the Oregonian. So, last week, Multnomah County put out this giant new dashboard with a bunch of information about what's going on with homelessness in Portland and Multnomah County. And it is so much clearer and the numbers are quite different than what we've seen before. So we're talking about a period from basically January of 2024 to February of this year. It says that there's 14,824 people counted as being homeless as of February in this region. That is nearly double the number that was counted by a point-in-time count in 2023, and 3,000 more than the most accurate estimates from about a year ago. They are saying that it's not that we've seen that dramatic of an increase. We're just getting a lot better at counting. We're getting a lot better at actually analyzing the data that really exists. But we have more information about demographics. We have more information about how people are moving in and out of shelters. The hopes is that this is really going to help the leaders actually understand the crisis that is going on in our streets and make decisions in a sort of data-driven way.
Oh, how about that?
Instead of just sort of like willy-nilly, having ambient arguments in the atmosphere about it and like
Oh my God.
not getting things done. So before I open it up to you guys, let me throw a couple more numbers at you that I think were interesting. 6,796 people were living outside, right? So of those like nearly 15,000 that are homeless, 7,000 of them are actually living in a place that is considered unfit for human habitation. And about 7,500 of those people were chronically homeless, right? So it's not just like a one-off situation that they've sort of been in this system for a while.
As much of like a bummer as this is to see, I think, much larger numbers than obviously we would have hoped. Like, it's a really staggering number. There's, for me, like at reporting on homelessness for 4 years, and like you said, John, just seeing, county commissioners, but also city officials just sort of like talk very like obliquely about the issues and the numbers and the lack of data. Like, it is a little freeing for me to actually see this. Like, okay, here's what we thought it might be. Like, here's actually something we can work with for the first time.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've had that before. Like, now we have something to actually base anything off of: our decisions, our funding, our debates. And the other part of me is like, why did it take this long?
Exactly.
It should not be this hard.
It's called governing.
And this is pretty simple data that our officials have just told us for years is just too hard to get a hold on. Like, we just can't grasp it. It's like, no, we can. And now we have, which is great. So I am hoping that this kind of changes the tenor of these discussions, and that now that we have a shared set of data that hopefully everyone like trusts in for the most part, that we can actually be operating from the same set of facts. And that has been much needed. It's also a little ironic to me that like the fact that it was Commissioner Shannon Singleton who ran the joint office that really was the one to push this, I think surprised a lot of her naysayers who just thought she was like kind of a cog in the wheel and was part of this joint office system that was just like feckless and couldn't make decisions, blah, blah, blah. And like, she was the one that was like, I want this data. And she's also, I think, in a place to know what metrics she should be asking for. And I'm not sure any other commissioners would have known that had they not been in like the homelessness system. I think she's surprised a lot of people with just her. She's been really tenacious, and she's been very clear about what she wants.
Yeah, when I was reading this, John, I just had pretty much mirrored Sophie's thoughts. It's like if someone's like, hey, go clean this room. You've never seen this room. You're going to be blindfolded. Do a good job.
Yeah.
You're just like, what am I doing? Yeah. So yeah, and we hear this a lot about the West Coast too. People are just like, oh, the liberal West Coast, they don't govern well. And it's like, because we we govern with our hearts and with our ideals and not with data. And yeah, let's get to data. How about that?
It's really interesting seeing how our officials are responding to this information as it comes out. Again, Lillian reported that the mayor, Keith Wilson, acknowledged that his plan to end unsheltered homelessness was based on outdated numbers. He says, quote, "The goalpost just got moved further away from us. We're simply going to adjust to it because these are our neighbors," right? City Councilor Eric Zimmerman called the data alarming as hell. And I think it is. I think it is surprising. But again, it also hopefully, like we've been talking about, creates the context to actually make better decisions in the future. And now that this data set has been established, they're saying they're going to be updating it every month. And I think it's going to be really fascinating to see, now that we do have this information, now that we are like in a position where we can track it month over month and really see, to the best of our ability, in close to real time, how the policies that we're putting into effect are actually impacting people.
Yeah.
It could be a really great moment. It could be the moment where we're able to begin really turning the corner here.
Yeah. I don't know what this feeling is at the bottom of my heart here.
Is it hope?
Yeah, I can't tell if it's hope or despair.
Hope?
Hope?
Oh, man.
You haven't felt that one in a while, have you, Claudia?
No, I have not. And I'm usually the one that's full of hope, while John is just like, let me tell you why this is going to fail. Oh, man. Well, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me. This is my first Friday roundup back from my vacation, so I was a little nervous going in, John.
I hope you come back next Friday because...
I'll think about it.
Okay, deal.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you guys for being here, and I hope everyone has a great weekend. That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. Our podcast production team this week was John Notarianni, Julia Fiaioni, Patrick Emile, and Francisco Kilgore. Our Hey Portland newsletter editor is Rachel Monahan, and our host is me, Claudia Meza. Original music by Jenny Conley and Stephen Drizos. Additional music by All the Kimonos, as well as Sarah the Instrumentalist, Timothy Infinite, and Gregory David, courtesy of Epidemic Sound. We'll be back Monday morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.